Alrighty, everybody, welcome in.
Hello and welcome in, everyone.
So, as you can see, we're playing a game that's quite different from something we usually play. Little bit of background, real quick. Yes, I play World of Warcraft. Yes, I'm one of those nerds. I have played World of Warcraft for 20 years. I started playing when the game came out back in vanilla. Uh, Played that for some time. I didn't play the original too long. I never got to, I didn't play that one from the very beginning. I did come in during the first expansion, but after that, I have played every single expansion and most of them from release until, well, I'd say up until Cataclysm. I played every expansion from release until the time the next one came out. They've made some terrible expansions, let's be honest. I mean, uh, they've dropped the ball quite severely, and I stopped playing during some of those expansions, like just about everybody, like Miss of Pandaria and Draenor, Warlords of Draenor. And we're going to touch on that a little bit today, but more so, we're going to touch on the new Midnight expansion that is coming out. It's going to be coming out here fairly soon. So they're releasing more and more about this, more and more stuff. And as I'm reading it, unfortunately, the way things are going right now after 20 years, I do believe the War Within will be my last expansion with World of Warcraft. At this point, the things they're doing and the things they're bringing in and things of that nature aren't really moving the needle for me at all. And then a lot of the things that have been a problem that have plagued this game for going on, 10, 12 years are not being addressed and not being fixed. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that stuff. But while we're doing that, we're actually going to be playing the game. I'm on my warrior. We are going to be running a delve, which is like a little thing, a little dungeon type situation that you can run by yourself or with friends. And you get this little guy, Braun. Unfortunately, even if you have a full group, you can't turn him off, and he is a Muppet. He is literally the epitome. He's a hunter, and he is the epitome of every hunter pug that you've ever met in your entire life. And this is coming from somebody who mains a hunter. So although I'm on my warrior, usually when I'm playing, I am on my hunter. I think I have like, you know, 125 days.
119 days was your hunter, 125 was your pally.
Yeah, that's in game too. That's not like how long they've been created. That's literally in game for 119 days on my hunter.
Let's just say I started this in the Dragonflight expansion like in 2023, and I just looked. I have 19 days in game total compared to his 100 and some.
And for people that know the game, this is on max tier. It's tier 11, so it is the hardest one, supposedly. But real quick before we get started, what I'll actually do is I will bring up the midnight information, and we can touch on that before we really get into stuff. So this is the alpha content that they have released to kind of give everybody the phases as we go through. So we'll look at some stuff and then we'll touch on it as we go back and reference back to it. But to give everybody, in case you haven't seen it, you can go ahead and take a look at it and we'll kind of get into it. Uh, they're releasing it in phases. And the whole reason they're doing this is, as you can see in phase one, you can level from level 80 to 83. And these phases are actually only a couple days. I don't have the exact dates and they don't release them here. But like the phase one will release on, uh, say, like October 16th. Then phase two will release on October 28th. So they're just like time gating the content because they've honestly put so little content forward that if they released it all on day one, you would be at max level. So rather than add more content to slow you down, all they've done is make it so that you can't level beyond a certain point before they want you to, which is a very bad way of trying to stop people from progressing in your game is to simply time gate it. It shows a lack of integrity first of all. Like you're selling me this game, you want me to play it, and it's a and my whole point is this game is subscription based. So you have to pay $15 for a time frame, which means you're not going to be able to play the game you want to play. You have to play it the way they want you to play it, which I have no desire to do that. I'll go play a game that lets me play the way I want to play. Uh, but you look at phase one, they're releasing Eversong Woods, which is a old area. They're trying to call it a new area. It's actually where the Blood Elves. Anybody who ever on Horde who has a Blood Elf knows what Eversong Woods is, which I have a problem with. Um, it sounds nitpicky, but after we go through this, you'll see what I'm trying to say about their treatment of the Horde and why they have such a hard time right now getting people to play the Horde as a faction and why everybody plays Alliance because for going on 15 years, they've done everything they can to show that they don't want Horde players to play the game at all. They don't even want you as a customer, basically, or they want you to switch to Alliance. Those are your two options because they do everything they can to make the game bad for the Horde, which is stealing one of our original zones, putting a new coat of paint on it, and calling it a new zone, which is just it's a cheap asset flip. That's all that is. That's uh if you went onto the marketplace and just bought like pre-made assets and made a game out of them. That's all they're doing. They're using development from honestly better developers back in the day when the game was developed during Burning Crusades, when it was much better. The game was so much better back then. Um, as proven by the fact that when they re-released all that stuff, their numbers exploded and everybody went back to play that stuff and no one was playing retail for a while. But they took Eversong Woods away. Now everybody can play it. Alliance will be there, everybody will be there. So it's new content for anybody that's mained or played Alliance for all of that time. This is something that's new for them, but for any Horde player, you're not getting anything new because they don't care. If you're a Horde, they just don't care about you as a customer. So you're getting the same content, and if you don't like it, roll Alliance or stop playing. Story and quests, I mean, it's the same as every expansion. There's going to be a storyline. The modern the modern expansion and the modern stories for World of Warcraft are not that great, to be quite honest with you. They're very lacking, and they're just not good storytelling. And ultimately, in every expansion, the Horde is the bad guys. It used to be back in the day, Burning Crusades, Lich King, Cataclysm. There was a gray area. Neither side was really good. Neither side was really bad. And you can point to the fact that the Crown Prince of Lordaeron, the humans, their crowning faction, who was supposed to be the next king, actually fell to the dark and actually became the Lich King and brought the scourge upon Azeroth and untold death and destruction, and he was the crown prince of Lordaeron. Like there was always a gray area where neither side was really. It was a lot like the real world. Neither side was really good, but neither side was really bad. There was a gray area, and some of them sometimes characters were blatantly evil, but the writing was more uh, the storytelling was more nuanced than what it is today. Uh, there was a lot more gray area in there of people doing things for reasons and stuff like that. And some of the few examples of people being blatantly evil, if we want to be honest, were from the Alliance side. The Alliance, if you looked at it, were actually the ones who chased the orcs out of their homeland. The indigenous people were chased out by the colonialists, and most of the orc tribes warred for many years amongst themselves. They actually weren't this expansive thing where they would go out and try and find other races to conquer. They basically warred amongst themselves in their own territory. And then once humans started encroaching on their territory, they started a war, and the orcs just never let that go because you don't do that with canonically the way the orcs are. You don't attack them unless you want to kill them because they're going to come after you until they're dead. So now every expansion that comes out, Sylvanas was the bad guy. Before that, in Warlords of Draenor. Now, I mean, you go back through all the expansions after Cataclysm, you see a strong emphasis on the Horde being the bad guys. And no one, and a vast majority of players who play video games don't want to play the bad guys. They don't want to be the bad guys, especially if those bad guys are just outright evil, like Sylvanas burning down the tree for the Night Elves. I don't care, burn it down 3 times. I'm an orc. It's PvP. I'll go there and help her burn it down. But um a lot of people aren't like that. They don't think of it like that. They see it and they see, oh my God, she did this and that, and rightfully so. Like, it wasn't good for her to burn down the tree. I'm not going to apologize for it because I'm not a little, bitch. But like, you look at that stuff and people don't want to play Horde anymore. So you look at this and like I said, the Eversong Woods being taken away from the Horde, and if it's given to everybody, then it is taken away from us because we can't go over to where the Driani were and experience their starting area. They've not evened it at all. They haven't made it so, oh, well, hey, let's let the Horde go and experience a place they haven't experienced yet. No, just about every single player who plays Horde plays a Blood Elf or has a Blood Elf as one of their characters.
And for that, like, they're not just taking away like that, okay, the outside questing area. They're taking away the major city for the Blood Elves. The Silver Moon is gonna be accessed now by everybody. It's not just
Yeah, well, I mean, if you level a starting level Blood Elf, you will be able to start in a different phased zone, so it will be separate. But then once you get to the story mode, you're going to go right back to where you started. So that's ridiculous. They're releasing a couple dungeons. Always do that. I skipped that for a reason. They're they're also releasing several delves. They will throughout the expansion. That's nothing new. That's the same thing they always do. So same story there. A new delve companion. It's a female because it has to be equal. You can't have Braun, who is a male, and then add another male. You have to have one male and one female, unless it's female. You can have two females, but you can't have two males. Modern day. So the classes updates. The really only big class update that they're doing is they're adding a third DPS spec for Demon Hunters, which is okay, and it's themed around this Void content. So super, um, great if you play a Demon Hunter. If you don't, too bad. You're gonna get basically the same class you've always played. They're not updating everything; they're just updating that. Professions, they're gonna rework professions and stuff, which is amazing because everybody likes the way professions are right now. Everybody likes the way they're progressing, and from what I understand with professions, they're gonna make some pretty severe changes, some pretty drastic changes. So why? I mean, uh, the crafting system has been mocked for the last 6 years in World of Warcraft because it's basically been meaningless. They took all of the things of all the benefits of crafting away, um, and now they finally in the War Within they actually finally put some stuff in that people wanted and people liked, and now they're gonna change that. So we'll see how that goes. I don't, I don't think it's gonna turn out well. Um, Usually, whenever they change things that people like and aren't asking for it to be changed, usually they change it in a manner that people don't like. Um, but then they have a new zone. It's a new zone. Zol Alman. No, anybody who's played the game for any length of time knows that this was previously a raid. More reused, reskinned content. That's all it is. They're just slapping a coat of paint on something that used to be old to keep development costs down and kick it out the door. I honestly believe as we go through this, and I'll explain it, this War Within, or this Midnight expansion was literally just a patch for the War Within. And then they slapped a whole bunch of stuff on here at the very end, like Zol Alman and Eversong things that they could flip really quickly to add content to it because as if you don't add flipped assets, there's almost no content here. So the story and quests always the same, delves the same, and like I said, this is all phases, and they're releasing this dungeon then, and then this dungeon then, and it's just a time gated so that one, you have to keep your subscription up, and two, they don't have to actually create content that will keep you engaged for 30 days. Uh, they'll just time gate it so you have to switch to another tune or switch to another character and play that rather than continue to play the character you want to play, or you have to log out, keep paying for a subscription for a game you're not playing because they haven't added enough content to keep you busy for 30 days. So, I mean, I don't know what to say whenever they want $70, $60 for a game and it doesn't even have 12 hours of content. If you're looking at this content right here, this is not 12 hours of content. Uh, Good luck with that. I mean, I'll play GTA 6. I don't know what to tell them on that one. Well, if you do every little quest in every area, it would be more than 12 hours. Yeah. And if I went and sat idle in Orgrimmar or Stormwind for 12 hours, it would be 12 hours of content too. Um, if it really was 12 hours of content, they wouldn't have to time gate it. 100%. If what you're saying, if the argument for people is going to be that no, it does last a long time if you did all of the quests and stuff, then why are they time gating it? Why not just make it so you have to get more experience to level and it takes you longer to do that? The entire game for World of Warcraft has nothing to do with leveling or questing anymore. It is 100% about end game, which is a bad way to design your game unless you're going to continuously add new end game stuff, which is exactly why I'm saying this entire expansion looks like it should have just been a patch at the end of the War Within on how the story ends. And whenever they developed the raid and everything, somebody said, you know what, we need another expansion. Why don't we turn this into an expansion? So they hurried up, did an asset flip for a couple zones to add new zones to the game, then also added player housing, for God's sakes.
You are
Uh,
about to AFK out. You've been away for a
yeah, I'm
while.
gonna get back in here. Sorry about doing this. I just wanted everybody to be able to see the content that they're gonna be releasing. So when I'm touching on it, you have a point of reference if you wanted to. Uh, oh, away. That's not good. All right, so we'll get into it. All right, so we'll get into it. We'll start with basically the zones that they're talking about releasing. Um, the zones that they're releasing, new zones, actually a good bit of them are just like I said, reused asset flips, which helps them. It helps keep development costs down, and which I wouldn't mind if you saw that money put elsewhere into the game. But nothing they're doing is going to add any kind of serious gameplay. The one thing that they're banking on is player housing. Literally, for this expansion, I have seen more advertisements for player housing than I have for the actual expansion. If I didn't know any better and I didn't look up Midnight and I hadn't previously seen anything and I just saw the advertisements, I would think the next patch or the next thing that was coming in was solely player housing because they are pushing this so hard as one of the core pillars of the game. And people are like, it think that it sounds good. And the way I would equate this would be the same thing as battle pets. You have the little battle pets that you can use in game, and they released that during I forget. I think it was Miss Pandaria or something years ago. And actually, it's kind of funny because during this next expansion, they're actually removing it from the game because nobody plays it. People enjoyed it for the first 30 days, realized that it was just a boring mini game, and it went away. Now, what they're doing with player housing, we're going to get into it, and that's not good at all either. But you look at the reused zones, Eversong Wood, Zal Almond, both reused. Uh, Harandar, which is the location for the new race that they're bringing in. The race doesn't appeal to me whatsoever. It looks like almost like kind of like an Avatar ripoff, like Timu Avatar is essentially what they look like. Uh, so you know, but modern day they got to do tribal things with tribal peoples and all that stuff. So we get the tribal peoples even though we had trolls, which were more tribal than anything that you can possibly imagine. So it is what it is.
That's for the zoning. If you look at it, 3 of the 4 new areas they're launching are reused or reflipped content. It's not new.
Yeah, and then they're gonna have the Void Storm area, um, which is gonna be basically like, let's see if we can get a map up here. Like Undermine, it's gonna be like a zone type situation. So there will be a somewhat new map, but it's not nearly everything I've seen. Is it's not gonna be anywhere close to the Isle of Dorn. What is going? Did you
I
kick a?
clicked on something.
So it's not going to be nearly as big, and I think that's why they had to redo those zones, is because they realized that, hey, this was going to be a patch originally, so we're short on a whole lot of stuff. So what we can actually do is go in and just reflip some assets and make it so that it actually has enough content to qualify as an expansion and not just a patch. But the zones are what they are. They're not very good. They're adding um, what they call a PvP zone or a PvP area, Slayer's Rise. We'll get into PvP too in general and what's upcoming, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I quit. Why I'm going to quit is because PvP is what I prefer to do. I'm a PvP first player, always have been. That doesn't mean I don't PvE. As you can see, my Warriors gear score, and I haven't been on much lately, but my Warriors gear score is 693. It's 726 for PvP gear score. But, you know, I mean, it's respectable gear. It's not top notch, but I don't play as much anymore because uh, the way the game is, it's just not as entertaining for me without the PvP being there. So most of like as far as the new zones they're adding, very unimpressive and doesn't inspire me to spend $75, which is what it is, because you have a $15 a month subscription fee. Then you have to buy the actual expansion. So to spend $75, and in our household, now that my wife plays it, also we're looking at $150 for this expansion. Um, it's just not there. The dollar value isn't there. We're not going to get. I won't get that much value out of the game as it currently is. $75 is a tall ask. Um, you look at other games on the horizon, like Grand Theft Auto 6 and other games, and Battlefield 6 just released. In Battlefield 6, you can buy it for 70, or you can just go on to EA and spend $15 and play it and not have to buy it, and it's $15. I already have been playing that recently. If you want to see it on a channel, let me know too. Throw it down in the comments. I like to run tanks in that game. I'm actually really good in a tank. I've played a lot of tank games, World of Tanks, uh, War Thunder, basically all the major tank games I've played him, and spent good amount of time and money on most of them too. But uh, getting back to WoW, the zones are what they are. The PvP is horrifically broken, and we will get into that in and of itself. That's a whole conversation in and of itself. Uh, but I guess now is as good a time as any to tackle the elephant in the room.
The player
I mean, well,
housing.
yeah, the elephant in the room. If you want it to be in the room, because you can decorate it any way you want. I'm sorry to tell Blizzard. Maybe I'm missing something. I haven't seen any good comments in reference to this. Um, I don't want a home and garden game in my WoW. I don't. If I want to design a house, I will buy the House Flipper game on Steam for like $4.99 when it's on sale and play that. I have no desire to have that in my World of Warcraft adventure game. And I hate to tell them this, like they're talking about this being a community and doing all this other stuff. I hate to be the one to break it to them because I guess these developers weren't here years ago. Um, they did this already. They did player housing. It was called Garrisons, and nobody liked it. because in and they're like, oh well, you can bring your friends over and you and your friends can have this community. Well, that's great. Let's say you have a lot of friends. Let's say you're super popular and you have 100 friends that you play with on a regular basis, and you're gonna share that community and your player housing area with them. Well, now that's 100 people that are no longer in Dornigal. That's 100 people that are no longer in Orgrimmar. 100 people that are no longer out questing. Instead, they're in their own little private zone, isolated from the player base as a whole. We've already done this. It did the same thing with the way garrisons worked. It isolated people and it made the game feel empty because when people were in there spending the hour that it takes to do the dailies, get all the stuff done, they're not out in the world being productive with the people around them. And the only way to be with those people is to join a community. Well, what if I want to be in a community with my wife and the friends that I play with? Now, it's basically splitting the entire uh, player base up into small little groups that aren't going to see each other, and the world's going to feel empty. They've already done this, and it's going to work out the same way. People have been asking for player housing and World of Warcraft for a long time, and I'm not against it. Like, there's other games I've played that had this stuff. Star Wars: The Old Republic, which is also a game by EA, but it was developed by BioWare back when BioWare was BioWare. So that's actually a really good game. If you ever get a chance, go play it. It's free to play. Not the greatest as far as how it's monetized, but the storylines in there when you play the different faction or play the different classes and the different factions, oh my god, it's worth the price of admission. It is truly a good, even just for that, even if you just play it as a single player experience and go through the story modes, it's worth the price of admission. The storytelling is great. You make decisions, and how you make decisions actually have an effect on the world around you. Whether you get companions that will come with you or not, your decisions make a difference in how your gameplay turns out in the end, and it's fantastic, which WoW doesn't do. But they have player housing in there. New World, which was just released by Amazon. No, just keep pulling, Braun.
I did. It came on me. It came padding behind me, so I pulled it. Don't yell at Bra that time. But
Uh, so like other games have had player housing, and it's always just an afterthought. Like New World did it too, and they did the same thing World of Warcraft is doing. They advertised it like it was going to be this cornerstone of the game, like people were going to interact with this so much. And after about 2 days, people realized that they just don't care. Like it's not what people play this type of game for. And ultimately, if you're doing that, you're not out doing something you want to do.
even just sitting in the world waiting for PvP crates to come in,
Oh,
like
found a rubber ducky. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like all of those people that will be in their player housing now aren't going to be out in the world doing world PvP and doing quests and doing things of that nature. They're going to be in their little insular bubble, and everybody's going to have their own bubble, and it's going to isolate the community from itself, and that's not going to be good for WoW, and it's going to transpire, like I said, the same way that it did during Warlords of Draenor. And the world felt horrifically empty. It felt bad. You would go into a major city that should be busy, filled with people, and it was a ghost town, and it made the game feel dead. And it, it they they think it's not. I don't know if they never played Warlords, if they just are ignoring it because they want this feature in the game, so they're putting it in regardless of how it's going to affect the community. Um, People have been saying for a long time they do things to isolate the community in a big way, and this is just more of that. So Uh, but they'll get their home and garden network in WoW. I don't know how it's going to work out for them. I don't know how many new players that's going to bring in. I don't know how many people are on the fence like, maybe I'll play World of Warcraft. I'm not really into it. Oh, well, they have player housing. Now I'm going to play World of Warcraft. And the reason why that's important is because if they're putting a dollar, $2 into player housing, that's money they're not putting into other parts of the game, which in some parts of the game need a lot of work. They're just broken. PvP is one of them. PvP is at its worst state that it's ever been. It's terrible. Everybody knows it's terrible. The only people that try and argue against that are people who raid in their raid players, PvP players, even people who still log in every day. We'll get it later. Even people who log in every day and play PvP will tell you that the core mechanics of the game, as far as PvP, are fundamentally broken. It needs a lot of work, but instead of fixing player versus player for the people who pay money like me, they decided to fix housing. So I have no interest in housing. So since PvP is still going to be broken, still going to be unfun to play, unbalanced, and just not a fun gaming experience, I'm not going to play. I have no interest in housing. They made a choice rather than put money into PvP, they put money into player housing. So if you're a PvP player, much like PvE players in Overwatch 2, where they were like, oh, we're going to release a PvE mode where people who want to play Overwatch 2 can PvE, much like the PvE players in Overwatch, that's how they're treating the PvP players in WoW. And it's a shame because previously the PvP crowd was every bit as big and as active as the PvE crowd in World of Warcraft. And people are like, "Well, it's not like that anymore." And it's, well, after 10, 15 years of them actively doing everything they can to destroy, to intentionally, knowingly harm PvP, doing things that would knowingly harm PvP, um, of course it's broken. You spend 15 years doing everything you can to break a game mode because honestly the developers don't like it. That's why it's like that, because they don't want a PvP, because honestly they go into PvP and they get their ass kicked and they don't like playing it. And that's what it is. Like you watch their streams and you watch them and like you watch developers play in PvP and they just get freaking face rolled every time. And hey, I'm not great. I get face rolled at times too, but I'm not going to destroy an entire game mode because I'm being a little baby, and because I'm not good at it, I'm not gonna let it in. And as far as people saying, well, it's not as popular, yeah, it's not as popular now. But like I said, they've done everything they can. They've literally released entire expansions with no new PvP content. Warlords of Draenor, uh,
Pandaria.
Pandaria. Like, whenever they released Pandaria and Warlords of Draenor, they didn't release any new battlegrounds and they released no new PvP gear. You had to wait months to get either of those. So what ended up happening is when people finally went into PvP and do arenas, when you could get arena gear and when you could get PvP gear, you had to go in there and face people that had been doing raids for basically the entire time and had way better gear. And none of the gear you could get as a PvE player could compare to the PvE player's gear. So you were going in there and getting completely steamrolled by raiding players who basically can take advantage of the fact that there was literally not a piece of PvP gear you could buy. And they released the game in that state knowingly, and that's one of the reasons why Warlords of Draenor died so quickly. People want to be like, oh, no, it was PvE players didn't like it, and that's it. No, what ended up killing Warlords of Draenor was they didn't release any PvP content, so they lost about 20 to 30% of their entire game uh,
Population.
game population nearly immediately. And over the course of 2 months, when they still hadn't released anything, PvP players stopped playing. I stopped playing. And people are like, well, how does that really affect the overall game? As you can see right now, I'm on a tank. I also have a pally, who is a tank. I also have a druid, who is a tank. Whenever I PvE, I like to tank. So whenever they lost that PvP player because they didn't care enough about the PvP player to add PvP gear, wasn't even asking for a new battleground. All I wanted was gear so that I could be competitive in the PvP battlegrounds against raiders, but I couldn't because there was no gear for me. I didn't raid at the top level, so I was never going to be able to compete in PvP combat with the top level raiders. And if you don't see a problem inherently there, then you'll you're gonna love the new housing system.
And it's always PvE first. For like instance, even now you can PvE.
Um, I don't know what I just did. I'm popping all my cooldowns.
Holy ow!
Good thing I gave you that health buff. You better hurry up and heal quickly. Yeah.
I
Because when that disappears, you lose that health.
I
You had 1% health. I gave you like 10% health. Had you not healed yourself quickly, in about 1 second, you were going to die when my commanding shout disappeared.
I bubbled myself. Priest bubble for the win also. I have the thing if you want to call the boss in also.
Yes, I have one too. So that's why I was saying we'll worry about that treasure chest that was back there later. I don't know why I'm still clearing. We got everything done. I guess because gives us something to do in the background while I'm talking. Uh yeah, so the housing system just isn't going to do what they think it's going to do. Like I said, hopefully it does, because they're going to lose me as a customer because they spent more money and time on PvE housing than they did on PvP. So I'm not buying the game. So hopefully that attracts a new customer to replace me, and hopefully that customer is as loyal to them for the next 20 years as I was. So really,
I
that's what we're
didn't
going with.
I didn't see the chart. But as I was saying before, you almost killed me the last time.
I
Uh,
didn't almost kill you. Yeah, the thing that you've been clicking on 16 times without us saying a word.
has it almost killed? I didn't take you to 1% health.
Oh, it's because I'm not a squishy little healer.
I'm not a healer. I'm in shadow stance right now. If I was a healer, I wouldn't have died.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Healers can't die in World of Warcraft. That's one of the reasons why PvP is so broken.
But I was saying before the first incident happened and we were talking about health, um, they care more about PvE. For instance, you can get PvE sets and you can chip them into PvP gear with that set bonus, but you can't do that reverse.
Yes, the best way here, I'll show you real quick with my gear. The way to put this is, so if you have PvE gear, like I have these shoulders that are set up there for PvE, so you can run dungeons and stuff, and they have a set bonus which gives you demolish damage, and they all have different abilities. So what you can do as a PvE player is, once you grind, and you still have to do PvE, but once you get enough conquest, you can then buy a chip, and that chip will allow you to turn this piece of gear into a PvP set. And if you look at the bottom, it says increases item level to 730 in arenas and battlegrounds, which makes it as good as the top level PvP gear. Now, this is cool because you still have to PvP to get it. You don't just get it. It's not like, I like the way that they did that, but if there's any doubt in your mind that they don't give two shits about PvP players, there is no way to reverse this. Like, I have these PvP gear pieces here. Like this one, I don't have enough conquest to upgrade my shoulders. I don't have enough conquest to upgrade my shoulders to PvP, and as you can see, they go up to item level 727. They're not as good. They're a little lower set piece, but so I need 700 conquest to be able to convert my shoulders to PvP. But there's no way in any way for me to convert these shoulders into a top tier piece of gear for PvE. I can't grind in my PvP gear and get a token that will allow me to turn my 7 727 arena gear into, you know, something that it goes up to on this heroic up to 720. I think the max level 730 now for PvE gear. So it won't allow me to take that up. And even if you were to level this piece of gear, a piece of conquest gear, that goes up to a high level, it will never be the same statistically as a piece of PvE gear. So you will always have different stats, and it will not be as good, which is just inherently unfair. If PvE players can come in and buy a chip and have gear that is the best PvP gear, yet if PvP players go and even if they upgrade their stuff to the best they possibly can, not be able to compete with the top level of PvE, then it's inherently broken and one-sided. And it's been like this for so long that people are now like, well, PvP isn't a major part of the game. And it's like, well, yes, because you have knowingly and intentionally done everything you can to kill it so that you can say that people don't PvP, but it's just false. And that's one of the reasons why, especially for the Horde, the game is dying. And there you see a very low population for the Horde right now for multiple reasons. One of the main reasons is because the Horde and the player base for the Horde were always player versus player. Even if someone didn't actively really play player versus player, if you looked at the top realms back, Burning Crusades, Lich King, Pandaria, Cataclysm, if you look at the old expansions, the classic WoWs that we all loved, um, if you looked at the numbers, most of the Horde players were on player versus player servers and most of the alliance were on role playing servers and PvE servers. So the horde player base, by and large, even if they weren't actively player versus player, were okay with while they were out questing having the PvP. The alliance, like my mother who actually played, she was playing in her 50s, 60s, and even recently she was playing in her 70s when they released Classic WoW. So she's tearing it up. And she played Classic WoW, but they released Season of Discovery, and she stopped playing because she didn't want retail in her Classic. Because if we wanted retail, we just would have played retail. But they had to go and put current day in old school WoW and killed it, so no one plays that anymore. But she didn't want a PvP at all, ever. So she did PvE, and that's if you look at the way whenever servers were created back in the day, that's how it was broken down. Horde had their, and people were like, oh, well, there's an alliance server that had this many, and it's like, yes, but for every one alliance server that was, for every one alliance PvP server that there was two horde servers. Okay, so and vice versa. For every one horde PVE server that was maxed with max population, there was two alliance servers. So that was just the dichotomy of the game and the way it worked. And since they have completely shit all over PvP combat for so freaking long that the horde nobody played the most of the players like myself have just stopped playing because whenever you're treated like that, it's the company clearly and openly saying, we don't want you as a customer. We don't value your input. We don't value you as a human being and as a customer. We are going to do what we want to do, especially if you don't like it, because it's something we don't like. The developers don't like PvP combat, therefore the game is not PvP oriented. And people were like, well, the game wasn't intended. You're right. When the game first came out, it was not intended to be player versus player, but the option was always there. They didn't say yes, but they didn't say no. And then as soon as they realized, oh my God, there's a player base here that want a PvP. That's whenever you saw them put the ranks in vanilla WoW, so you could be a general and a warlord and things of that nature to add a progression system to PvP, and they carried that through into Burning Crusades, into Lich King, and whenever it started falling off is when you saw a dramatic fall off of player base, and they literally forced went and forsook and basically told a large portion of their customer base, we don't care anymore. They took the J. Allen Brack approach that you won't like vanilla and said you won't like PvP and destroyed it and made changes that had negative effects in PvP, but were meant and intended for PvE. And they didn't make any adjustments to allow for that dichotomy of the two. There should always be a separation, like we have in the United States. We have a thing called the separation of church and state, which means that one should not have a direct influence over the other. They can both exist communally and exist at the same time, but one should not negatively affect the other one and prevent it from being able to do what it wants to do. And it's the same thing with PvE. One should not negatively affect the other. And they have done everything in their power for many, many years to ensure that no PvP things will contradict PvE, while at the same time making decisions in PvE that have had damning and destroying effects to the point where PvP is so unbalanced that nobody wants to play it. Even professional players that could possibly make money off of doing so have chosen to go elsewhere because the game is so unfun and broken.
And it's just unbalanced. Like they nerf alliance. Like they want everybody to play alliance is what they're pushing for. Because he'll go way more in depth in this, but like for just racials, each class has their own racial, and if you look,
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm gonna
you're gonna bring that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt you and then say just hold your horses on that one because I am getting there with that because this is all I'm talking about the PvP and stuff like that right now, and we are going to move into one of the larger problems with PvP and why one of the things that has broken it to such a degree.
Do you want me to switch to my healing class? For
So I'm going to grab this stone and then we can call in the special lady downstairs. We're going to save that chest.
Yep, just in
For
case.
anybody who does play this game, if you save this chest and this stone till the very end, if you wipe, then you can come and grab it, and you won't lose it. So, like, if we were in here, if before we got that life, had we wiped, we would have lost 2 lives, and then we could come back and get that stone. So we're gonna do the same thing here. If we wipe and we get down to 0 lives, then this chest is going to be sitting here so we can come up here, grab our life, and still get our loot at the end of the dungeon. So save those till the end just in case. And then if you want to, after you kill the last boss, if you want to go back and get it, you can. It doesn't really, they don't give you anything. They don't give you any extra treasure or anything. They give you an extra life. They do give you like a stat bonus usually or like a little effect, but it's not enough to warrant
You want me to place it?
risking. Um, I mean, I have one too. It's up to you. You can put it down. I can put it down. I have 6,000 undercoins, so I can go buy some more
Oh, I
too.
have I think 7,000
Stand
undercoin,
here. Stand here. Stand here. And once that now run. Remember, look at her whenever she does her move.
and she does it twice.
2 times every time she goes into that.
It's a thing she casts, right?
Here comes Dark Massacre. Face it.
I
Not
didn't.
like that.
I didn't even see it when it came out.
That would make it hard to face it. Yes.
Like I literally was turning to find the massacre to see where it was.
All right. So, and while I'm doing this, I'll continue talking about the broken state of PvP and other things. But they've literally gone out of their way to harm PvP in many ways, and by not paying attention to it, adding abilities that unbalance PvP combat and not correcting those abilities and making them not work the same way or nerfing them in PvP combat. I'm looking at you, healers and tanks. The problem between the two and the reason why there should be a separation between the two is because a tank, like I am right now, as you can see, I'm taking massive damage. I could actually survive one of these mechanics where I actually got hit by one and it did very little damage. I can survive an immense amount of damage, and I have all of these defensive cooldowns, which basically, if I pop them all, make me like immune to taking damage essentially. So having that kind of ability in Battlegrounds is game changing. But then you take into account, if you've been looking at me doing damage, I'm doing 1.3 million damage a second. I'm not even trying here. Like, as you see, I just took 2 hits from that. Like, I'm not even like attempting to do damage or anything. Like, I'm not even using my good rotations and stuff like that. I'm just kind of adding gameplay footage to the end of this so you guys have something to watch while I talk about it. Uh, so I'm not even trying and I'm doing damage. And if I specced out and did everything to be able to do damage, it would be even more. And having a class that can take an immense amount of damage and do a crap ton of damage is really good for PvE content when you're trying to kill a boss. But in player versus player combat, it's unbalanced and unfair. Because other classes aren't meant to be able to kill a tank. Nobody in this game can do the type of damage that a Mythic plus 12 boss can do. And if you can't do as much damage as a Mythic 12 boss, then killing a tank is going to be awfully hard. And anybody that PvPs right now and has seen a Blood DK or a Pharaoh or a Guardian Pharaoh Druid or a prot warrior knows the difficulty that I'm talking about because they are so survivable and able to survive some of the hardest PvE content where there's massive damage. You can't, as a singular person, be expected to be able to take them down reasonably. Are these guys going to disappear? Do I have to keep facing them? Okay. They phased out. I was like, are they just going to wait till I turn around? Go down there. We got to kill that dude. Make sure you click on your mappy.
Yep, I just did.
So classes that are specifically intended for PvE combat are hard to balance for PvP. Granted, that's I'm not arguing that whatsoever, but my problem with it is they don't need tanks. As a tank player, I don't need to do 2 million damage when I hit something. It's all about threat and survival. Rather than me do that much damage, take however much damage that you expect the tank to do during that fight, subtract it from the boss, and add mechanics that are more fun for a tank player to play, like me having to use my defensive cooldowns at the right time, me interrupting the boss to stop them from using specific abilities at the right time, because ultimately if I they control how much threat I have and if I can hold aggro. So if I do one damage, it can mean one threat, right? One for one. Or if I do one damage, they can make it so it does a million threat. So how much damage a tank does is truly insignificant if they put the time in to actually just develop a system for tanks to have an enjoyable gameplay experience, which is another reason why a lot of PvE players, a lot of tanks have quit the game because it's just not fun. Like tanks, if you want to do damage, then you play a damage class. Tanks want to take damage. They want to be tough. They want to get in there and have things beaten on them. They want to feel that gritty feeling of combat and just and having the fight, and that has gone. It's not there anymore. I'm just mass pulling this stuff, and it's just run out of the circle. That's it. That's the mechanic. Like it's not in any way truly engaging. It's just
I think that's what kills me the most is because you'll see and you'll hear the developers talking about how current WoW in this state within the war within is so hard for players and they need the add-on. And that's
yeah.
why they have Deadly Boss mod and stuff that you can add on.
Yeah, deadly boss mods. I've said for years they need to get rid of it, and that's one of the funny things about when they did re-release Classic recently. They re-released it, and everybody was like, "We downed Molten Core in the first couple weeks," and da 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 da. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because when you went into Molten Core, you knew what every single boss was. You min-maxed your stats, and you knew exactly what gear you needed, what enchants you needed, what classes you needed, what you had to do for pulls, how to do it, everything like that. Because me and my friends had already played it and wrote that stuff. The first time we went into Molten Core, nobody had ever been there. There was no WoW wiki. There was no place to go look it up and find what mechanics the boss did. You know how we found out what Ragnaros did? We went in there and we wiped and we found out and you had to go back in. the current day WoW players that think, oh, Classic wasn't that hard, went in there with deadly boss mods, which didn't exist, in Discord, which we had Ventrilo back in the day, but it was very new when WoW first came out. If your guild had Ventrilo, you were the shit. And I remember raiding that spawned in. Okay. If you had like a Ventrilo back in the day, that's how you could like determine how cool and how good a guild was. Is if a guild had a 25-man vent for raid nights, if they had a 40-man vent for raid nights, oh man, that guild was on point. If they had 100-person vent that they had all the time, that guild was like baller status. They were like Bill Gates rolling deep. Like that's oh my God, they have 100 people. Oh, nobody has to get off on raid night. Because I remember going to other people's raids and stuff, and other players who weren't in the raid would have to leave Ventrilo so that all the raid players could come in because there wasn't enough slots for anybody. Now you log into Discord and it's free because Ventrilo you had to pay for back in the day. Now you log into Discord, you can just start your own server and invite people to it, and you can have 100 people on. I don't know if there's a max. I'm pretty sure there's not, but
I don't think so.
you can have 100 people on a free app nowadays to communicate. We didn't have that back in the day. A lot of those raids that went in there, and people don't realize this, a lot of the raids that went in were not like the Leroy Jenkins where the raid leader was in there yelling at people. A lot of raids that went into Molten Core and into Blackwing Layer and stuff did not have a Ventrilo. They did not have a voice communication system. Everything was done through chat and through raid warnings. So it was a completely different game. And like I said, nobody knew the game mechanics back then. And now they have deadly boss mods. They have 20-year-old um, basically wikis that tell you exactly how to go, how to do it, and with all of the classic realms that were out there in China, even the ones that weren't legally sanctioned and Blizzard ended up shutting down, those people min-maxed it. So they had guides that showed you exactly how to do it and how to do it the most quickly, like a Mythic Plus dungeon. The Asian people were speed running this long before Blizzard came back out with vanilla, so there was already basically a ready-made worksheet that they just had to go down the list and check everything off, and then they plowed through it in 2 weeks, and we're like, hey, look how great we are. And it's like, yeah, thanks for standing on my shoulders and telling me how great you are, dude, because all my wipes in Molten Core when nobody knew what was going on gave you that success. But don't thank me. By all means, tell me how much better you are than me when you need deadly boss mods in classic vanilla. If you use deadly boss mods in classic vanilla, you're bad. You automatically from there you're bad. I don't want to hear it. Oh, well, that's not nice to say. You're right, it's not. But here's the thing. I can do all of this. I don't have deadly boss mods on now. Like literally the couple of the mods I run, if you look at my pointer, it has this white circle, and it's because I'm 40 years old and I lose my pointer on screen at times, so I like it to be better highlighted. Because as you can see, whenever you put it over certain things, it just kind of blends in there. It just blends right in. Like if you point over here, it just blends right in. You can't even see that sword, but you can see the circle around it. So it makes it more highly visible. Back in the day, the pointer was really bright and the world was kind of mute, even though it was colorful in world. Back then, in Classic WoW, it wasn't nearly as bright. The color palette wasn't as expansive, so your pointer stood out a lot more. Now it just kind of blends in. They should actually add something so you can change your pointer color and do this kind of thing so that you can actually see it. Because one of the things you'll see that I do is if you look, um, you see how the hand disappears, but you can still see where the pointer is? That's because I hold right click down on my mouse so that anywhere I move my mouse, now I'm just looking. So I can run around. And if you ever see like a hunter that's kiting somebody and can like shoot back over their shoulder, that's how they do it. So what you do is you look over your shoulder and you can strafe. My A and D keys on my keyboard are reprogrammed to be strafe. I changed Q and A so now Q turns left like this, and A strafes left, and same thing in reverse on the other side. E is turn right, and D is strafe right. So I don't use I don't use my turning keys to turn. I use my mouse, grab it and spin it, and then I use strafe, left and right to strafe. And whenever I'm on my hunter, that's how I can kite, look over my shoulder and run away from the person and still be able to shoot them. Now that creates a problem because where is my mouse at? And it seems easy, but when you're in a fight and I'm on my hunter and I'm fighting a warlock and a mage and there's a healer and there's a feral druid going on and you got all that stuff going on in PvP combat, where did I leave my pointer last? Was my pointer down here? Did I click one of my other abilities? Did I mount? Was I recently mounted? Did I get dismounted and my pointer's over here? Like, where was my pointer when I originally put it so that I can throw an AoE down over here? Like, if I want to throw this down. You know what I mean? So I know where my pointer's at to start with, because if I'm looking over here on this side of the screen, if I looking over here for my pointer's over here, and it's over here, that doesn't seem like much, but the literal second it took for that is a global cooldown and a spell cast. So I missed a spell, I missed an ability, I missed an attack because I was looking for my mouse, and uh that's just a me thing. It gets a little hectic and I have trouble tracking it. So this just helps that, because no matter what, I can see, okay, there's my pointer right to the bottom left. So that's a visual thing that I would like to see them actually add, because they're going to be taking a lot of these mods out. But Deadly Boss mods is dumb. I've never used deadly boss mods. I've never had a need. The bosses all tell you when they're about to do a mode. You'll see when we go into this. He'll start casting an ability and everybody knows what to do. During this fight, he's going to cast an ability. And during the damage phase, what he'll do is he'll shoot a cannon up into the air, and there'll be these purple dots that form in the ground around anybody who's standing there. As a group, as a party, when you're doing this, he doesn't do a big cleave. The AoE damage he does do, you're going to get hit by it regardless of range. So you want to just stack on the tank so that when that purple area drops, it all drops in the same location. And that way, you take up as little space as you can, because you'll see as we go through this, the purple dots will take up space and we'll have to move them around in a circle. And you will see that Braun, even though he's an NPC who you have no control over and who I wish I could just delete from this fight because he makes it harder, will also drop a purple dot, and he will drop it wherever, and he doesn't listen to you. He won't stand by you. He'll stand in the worst possible area so that you take up the most possible room and basically make life harder on you. Can I hashtag can I not have Braun?
He has a fishing pole out right now.
Yeah, I mean that says everything you need to know right there. I mean, we're prepping for a boss fight and talking about PvP, and Braun's over here with his fucking fishing rod. He's a dwarf. What do you want? But so getting more in depth with the PvP, um,
He talked about the tank aspect of it, like the tank's supposed to be able to take the damage from like a mythic plus.
yes, and nobody in the game, and rightfully so, nobody in the game. I'm gonna pull him to the corner.
Yep, I was ready.
And we will drop these over here in the corner, and then we will move over and tank them where the purple isn't. They are meant to be able to tank the hardest bosses. Tanks were meant to stand toe to toe with the Lich King. You know what I mean? They were meant to stand toe to toe with the most feared bosses in the game. So
He's dropping.
Yep. So you being able to do enough damage to easily or reasonably take down a tank just isn't going to happen, especially if you're a melee class. They suffer from it more than most. If you're a mage, yeah, you can run away from a tank and you won't have a problem, or if you're a warlock, if you're a ranged class. But if you're a melee class, you really have no chance versus a tank, because they can do the same damage that you're doing, and they have all of the defensive cooldowns in the world, so it's nearly impossible to kill them. And there's no balance for that in PvP. It's not like, oh, they switched to PvP. If I switch to my PvP gear and tank spec, I'm still going to get massive stats from it, and I'm still going to hurt. Like, I'm still going to wreck people. And it makes it unfun, to be honest with you. It gets kind of boring if you try and do it that way. But they don't balance it properly in that regard. And also, the other one, the bigger the bigger one, the one that's more important, is healers. Healers are meant to keep themselves up, the tank up. They're meant to keep 5 people up in the hardest content imaginable. And a lot of the damage that you will take in those dungeons is unavoidable. So you are going to take that damage, and they have built into the healing classes that anticipation of you taking massive damage, and they gave the healers the ability to help you recover so you don't all die. But by doing so, they've made it so that healers are nigh unkillable. You when you go into PvP, whether it's 3v3 or 2v2 or even battlegrounds, you want to CC healers, because trying to kill a solo healer, especially if they have like healing mods or deadly boss mods or something that can tell them different things, it's nearly impossible to kill them.
Even without it, it's nearly like 1v1 in a world. You like, I run discipline. I'm in shadow right now. I'm normally in this stance, and 1v1 in the world, it is pretty impossible to kill me and most healers.
Yeah, I played a healer back in Lich King. I had a Pally. Uh, I played Ret and heals. That was back before you had to switch gear. On that tune, I actually had uh, 5 sets of gear. I had a tanking set, I had a healing set, I had a PvP healing set, I had a Ret set, and I had a PvE Ret set, or a PvP and a PvE Ret set. So I had five sets of gear, and getting the enchants and stuff was always fun. Thankfully, my cousin, who I actually still play the game with, who literally the only reason I have a subscription today to play this game is the only reason I have it, because I play with him. If it wasn't for playing with him, I wouldn't be playing WoW at all at this point. I'm just dissatisfied with the product, and mainly because, like I said, I'm PvP first, and PvP is awful. Healers are horrifically broken. Um, Back in the day, the whole reason uh, healers and tanks and things of that nature were even in PvP combat with any numbers or anything wasn't because it was fun to PvP back in the day as a healer or a tank. Back during Vanilla WoW or Lich King or Burning Crusades or any of the original expansions, back then, if you were a healer and like a rogue or a Mortal Strike warrior got on you, you were dead. That was it. You were done. They would just completely rickroll you. They would maul you, and there was very, very little you could do. You had to hope your teammates could CC them or get them off of you. Because they weren't truly meant to do that. They weren't meant to take damage. They weren't meant to survive a lot of damage. Now they can. The reason they were really in there, and they kind of buffed them a little bit to make them viable, was because back in the day you couldn't just go in like this and switch specs. You had to spend a lot of gold to be able to switch between specs. The gear was completely different. Now that same gear that I had on for my PV for my tank set, now if you look, it actually adds uh, different abilities for my uh, DPS set from tanking. So you couldn't do that back in the day. You couldn't just switch your talents at will. You had to spend a lot of money. So there was an inherent need for them to make those classes viable in PvP, um, even though they weren't truly meant for PvP. And now you can do that, so there isn't really that reason for people to have to be able to be there as a tank. There's no reason a tank has to be able to play in PvP combat, and if they do, then it should be honestly quite boring for them, because they shouldn't be doing the kind of damage they're doing. They should only be able to take damage. And in a PvP battleground, you can't taunt enemy players to attack you. So maybe like you could guard a flag and stop the enemy from being able to take your flag, and play defensive roles, which there is a use for. Um, but you should not be able to go in there and put out a lot of damage and things of that nature. And they can, and healers can heal through everything. and they don't reduce the healing, and they know healing is broken and unbalanced. Right now, you can queue up for arenas in what's called a
You could do. There's different sets.
there's solo, which is you queue up by yourself and they put you in a group. But it's not solo. You're not going to fight anybody 1v1. And the most played arena is 2v2 battles. 2v2 players, that's the one that most people play. It's the easiest. It's the easiest to get people to play with you. So you can't do 2v2 arenas in solo. And the reason that's a huge problem is because as a DPS player, I will queue up for a solo arena and I will sit in this solo arena queue for 20 plus minutes, not waiting for other DPS specs, because we all have to wait for a healer, which is completely antithetical to PvP combat in and of itself. You don't need a healer to PvP. There is no requirement for that. You need DPS. You have to be able to kill the enemy. You don't need to be able to heal. If your teammates die, that's why there's graveyards in battlegrounds. You don't need healers. Yeah, they make it nicer and it's kind of cool to have them, but they shouldn't sway the difference. Right now in PvP combat, if one team has a healer and one team does not, statistically, that team with a healer is going to win a vast majority of the time because of the difference they can bring. Healers will go into a battleground. I'll go in on one of my DPSs and I'll do 1 billion damage, okay? Which sounds like a lot, but the way the numbers are, it's just normal. So I'll go in on my hunter and I will do 1 billion damage. In that same battleground, you will have healers that have 4, 5, even 8 billion healing, and you have to look at the top 8 to 10 players on a team to account for that much damage. So you have one healer accounting for the damage of 8 to 10 players. That's not balanced. One player should account for one player. One DPS should account for one DPS. One healer should not wipe out the progress or the contributions of 10 of the enemy team, which is exactly what they do. And Blizzard knows this. They know it 100%, and they could easily nerf it and nerf healers in PvP combat. They could reduce the stats on their gear, or the most easy thing is when you go into PvP combat, you now heal for 75% less. And people are like, "Oh my god, well what are people going to do?" The same thing my wife just did. All you do
I'm in full conquest right now.
You all she does is look. Oh, she's in discipline. Well, guess what? You know what? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, Jane. Now they have done a nerf, so healing is reduced by 75% in PvP combat. So you're not going to have as big a role or effect on it. So is there anything else you would want to do?
I would switch to probably like I would switch to Shadow or just
See,
do it.
watch this, folks. Ready? Well, hold on. Here we go. Boom. She's ready for PvP combat because now she's in Shadow. It's that easy. It's that easy. Healers should not have the ability to wipe out the contributions of 10 to 15 people on the enemy team and do it so easily. Um, I love my wife. She is getting really good. She's actually developing into a really good WoW player, but she's played this game for
Almost 3 years. I started in 23 at like the end of the Dragon
yeah, she
Isle
played like the Dragon
expansion.
Isles expansion as her first expansion, but there's no way that she should be able to come in after 2 years and be able to outperform other players that have been playing this game for a lot longer. Uh, on certain classes, it's even worse. On certain classes that don't have healing reductions, like on my Mortal Strike Warrior, healers suck and it takes forever to kill them. But it's possible, but it's going to take 20 or 30 minutes, literally. And that's not an exaggeration. And it just basically comes down to It's a war of attrition. You have to beat on a healer for so long that eventually they make mistakes.
or just run out of mana at that point.
Yeah.
And I to cut him off, they know it's broken because yes, he showed you the rated queues for the rated battlegrounds, the solos, the twos, the threes, the tens. If you go into quick matches and you just mouse over the scrimmages, it's either 2v2 or 3v3 in those scrimmages. But it straight up says healers will only be placed in 3v3s because they will not do a twos team with a healer because the team with that healer in twos will win.
Yep. If they put you in there and it's two DPS versus a DPS and a healer, go look at the stats on that. A vast majority of the time in those matches, the team with the healer is going to win. And people are like, "Oh, well, this player does it, and this player." Yeah, if you're talking about the 1%, I'm sure Shroud and the other professional players who are well and above my skill level and anybody else's for that matter can easily kill a healer. But for the rest of us, the other 99% of the player base, it's impossible to kill a healer. So let's not talk about and let's not plan a game around the people who are of the utmost skill and can do things. And that's part of the reason why it has gotten to the point where it has, is because Blizzard listens to those players. Blizzard listens to the top streamers more than they listen to the majority of their player base, because they have an outlet. They have a platform that they get to speak on.
Do we want to show them like the training grounds that they're putting in also to train people on PvP and show how well it's going to train people while we're still talking?
Uh No, I think we could do that at another time. We'll probably just go run another delve or something, because if we're in there, then we're actually going to have to go and do stuff.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's true. It is versus bots.
You tap a flag and then go camp their graveyard to train for PvP.
Well, I am going to hearth back. Yeah, one of the biggest problems with PvP is it's horrifically unbalanced. And it's not like just DPS one does more damage than the other one. You're always going to have those small things. But the biggest problem is PvE oriented specs. Tanks were not meant and not invented for PvP combat. Neither were healers, but they were viable in PvP combat. But now, because of the Mythic Plus content and the high level PvE content, um, now you see them being completely overpowered. And people know about it. Blizzard's known about it for years. But like I said, they don't care about PvP. So the fact that these PvE classes are able to come in there and create a bad gaming experience for people, they just don't care. If you want to play this game for PvP, then they don't want your money. Go someplace else. And I'm taking that to heart. This, like I said, I'm not going to be buying Midnight. They don't want me as a customer. That's fine. I've seen the changes they're making to PvP content, and they've clearly put more time into player housing than they did into PvP. So hopefully, like I said, that money that they invested in player housing brings in new customers to replace players like me who they said they don't want as a customer. Hopefully that's their business plan. Hopefully they've accounted for that. Otherwise, it's going to end up like Concord and not go so well. um, but we'll see what happens. But we'll go in and we'll do this new training. It's essentially, this is what they're putting in. One of the things they're putting in is an AI battleground to try and help people learn how to do battlegrounds, because there's such a problem with it that people don't know what they're doing in battlegrounds. So
Apparently.
yeah, so they're teaching, and and my point with this is, there's if people go in and do a raid, they'll watch a video on that raid. They'll go in and they'll learn about the raid. Yet people step into battlegrounds, and this is what frustrates me as a player versus player first player, is people will go into a raid and undermine, or one of the new raids or one of the old raids, and they will look up each fight, so they know the mechanics, they know what they're supposed to do, they know what they're supposed to do. They'll look it up as a warlock or as a hunter, so they know as their class what they're supposed to do. Yet they will walk in and go queue up for player versus player combat, never having looked up anything, never watched a YouTube video, never even asked in general chat, what should I do, how should I do this. You could sit here in trade chat in the major city for weeks, and you will never see somebody spam out, "Hey, I'm new. Can someone tell me about PvP?" People just don't do it. They go in there, they get completely steamrolled, and it makes a bad experience because if four players on a 10-player team don't know what the hell they're doing, don't have the gear that they need to be there, and don't pay attention and listen to their teammates around them, it doesn't matter how many different training, quote unquote, training modes you put in. And I'm going to show you why those modes are completely broken. Um, it's not going to teach people what they need to know, and it's actually going to reinforce negative behaviors and make things a lot worse. So PvP crate, this is amazing because during the day as a horde you can actually get these, but later on, once the alliance players start coming online, you will never win one of these crates. That's another reason because world PvP is dead. The Whenever you go and you play this game, when you go to different zones, like if you go to each one of these, it's not like everybody goes to those zones. Um, what you'll end up having is this, like if you go to the Isle of Dorn, there'll be 10 different Isles of Dorn like this area here. There'll be 10 different ones of this, and you'll get put on what's called a shard. So if even if you and your friend are in this island and standing next to each other, there's no guarantee that you're going to be on the same shard. And Blizzard can balance those shards to ensure that it's fairly even as far as players are concerned. Put the PvP players who are on PvP servers, like I'm on Dune Mall, and there's other PvP servers, put those players on there together, and then PVE players should be on there with nobody if there's not enough players to balance it out properly. But you'll go on here and you'll literally come here and there'll be uh, 10 horde in the area, and there'll be 20 horde in the entire zone, and there will be 40 alliance raiding the chest, and you lose it. And it's completely unbalanced, and especially because the horde is really low on player numbers. Because if you want to play the game, you have to play alliance. They've made it that way. Our racial abilities are terrible. They are really, 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 really bad. And the only people who will say no are just trying to defend it for the sake of defending it. Ask any top tier raider, any top tier player, if you could have a night elf hunter or you could have an orc hunter, which one would you want to go do a mythic plus dungeon? And every single one, unless they're terrible at this game, is going to say a night elf. Because all things considered, if everything is equal, gear, if it's the same player behind the joystick and the same player behind the keyboard, you're going to end up with the night elf able to do more damage and be more effective because statistically they are just better from the outset. Their racials are better, their stat-based stats are better. Everything about the alliance is better. The one thing the horde used to have was our racial abilities. As a shadow priest, you got devouring plague. No other race, no other priest could get devouring plague. Well, they took that away from undead and gave it to everybody. Did they give anything to shadow priests to account for that fall off? Did they give them more intellect? Because they had lower intellect than everybody else, but they had these neat abilities. Did they give us anything to replace what they took away? No. They gave Devouring Plague to everybody else, took it away from us, and gave us nothing in return to compensate for that. Um, if people are interested and people want to try and argue this point, I will gladly go on and pull up the actual numbered statistics and show you that statistically speaking, stat wise, the Horde is worse off for every class. If you want to talk about racials, the racial abilities for the Horde are terrible. Right now, the racial from my Orc Warrior is I get 4,925 attack power. Hold on, let me completely annihilate all these bots. This is why this is absolutely pointless.
They
Because
literally
the
all
bots
were
that
just
they're
on
gonna put
you.
in for the training mode don't know what to do. Not only are they not good at this, but they don't react like humans. Do you see bloodlust from them? Has any of them popped bloodlust? What about their cooldowns? Why does this shaman not have their dogs out? Why didn't they pop all of their cooldowns to kill me? And it's because the computer is never going to be the same as a human being. And them trying to use this to train people just isn't going to work because it's going to reinforce bad habits because somebody's going to run in there like I just did versus a group of actual alliance and get completely annihilated.
Because if it was actual alliance, they wouldn't have just let me stand in the back and throw heals. They
Yes,
would have been
they
on.
would have hexed her, they would have feared her, they would have popped all their cooldowns, they would have popped bloodlust or time warp and burned all of their cooldowns to effectively win the battle, but AI doesn't do that. AI, and here's the other thing about this. We have them 5 capped. In this dungeon, normally you want to hold 3 and defend and call out incomings whenever you have it, but if they send 10 people to Lumbermill and you're going to lose the fight, you don't just keep going back to Lumbermill. You go to mine where they only have 2 people. You counter Zerge. That's one of the things that modern players don't realize and don't understand about PvP that AI isn't going to teach them. The counter Zerge. Whenever they all go to one area, you go to the other. You don't meet their team head on. All you have to do is if they send 10 people to Lumbermill, there's only 15 players in here. If they have 10 people at Lumbermill and 3 people or 2 people at Stables, that means they only have 2 or 3 at Goldmine. So you go to Goldmine with 5 people that died up at Lumbermill and you counter Zerge to take a node back. They're not going to teach you that in this new mode. You're not going to learn that. All it's going to do is, like we just did, 5 captain 1, it's just going to reinforce negative behaviors in players, not do what they want it to do. The only way to truly teach people how to PvP is for them to PvP. And for them to want to PvP, the game has to be balanced and fun. With healers being so broken and overpowered that it literally sways whether you can win. You will go into a battleground and you will fight a team that has 2 or 3 healers, and your team will have 1, or your healers won't be as good. So their 3 healers will be good, and they will literally go an entire battleground, and 0 people will die. And your team will have 20 or 30 deaths, like a normal battleground because the healers are so broken and overpowered. Even if everybody on your team targets one healer, the other 2 healers can keep them up. So you have to have a coordinated effort with no comms in chat with people who don't pay attention and don't want to pay attention. They want to play the game they want to play, that which is fine, but you can't compete versus broken classes if everybody's not on the same page.
Oh, and from like what he was saying, like some healers are like he said bad. Some healers aren't like they're rated the top, but the way you heal on them is different. For instance, like the top rated healers, if you go into Icy Veins, for instance, on the internet and look up like the best healers, it has a Resto Druid and a Holy Pally, which yes, they can heal, but they're more better for PvP because they have the CC they have.
Okay, so I said healers were bad, referencing the person behind the keyboard. I was saying the actual player is not as skilled as the other healer. And when one healer is less skilled than the other, healers are so overpowered that if one healer is that much better skill wise, your team can't win. That's how much a healer matters. If one healer is skilled and one healer is not, that your team cannot win that battleground, which is not right. If me and another warrior go in there and I'm terrible on my warrior and the alliance warrior is Osmond Gold and he's freaking ripping it, and he's cutting people's heads off, and he's rolling people up left and right. If he goes in there and he's better than me, he's not going to win the battleground. That one warrior outperforming a warrior on the other team is not going to inherently win them the battleground. But if you have one healer that can outperform another, it will win the battleground 9 times out of 10. Like you have to, the team has to be overgeared and be really, really good to overcome a healer differential. And for one class to have such an impact on gameplay is not only unfun and unbalanced, but it's just broken to the point where people don't play the game anymore. People don't want to PvP, and people have complained about this for decades, and instead of fixing the underlying problems with PvP, they're coming up with half-assed solutions so that they don't have to fix the underlying problem. The reason they don't want to fix healers in PvP is because the PvE players that come in and do it, they want to cater to them. They want to cater to the people that don't PvP first more than they do the PvE players. And people are like, why is WoW's numbers falling off? Why are pre-sales down? And it's because every time they do that, they lost all of those PvP players. Like me. Like I said, when I stop playing, they're not losing a PvP player. They're losing 3 tanks, 2 healers, and the rest of my DPS. Of somebody who knows the game mechanics for 20 years and knows what they're doing because they don't care about PvP, because they'd rather make it fun for a PvE player to PvP than make it fun for a PvP player to PvP. They're adding a new PvP zone. So I'm sorry this is blurry, but I had to take this from a screenshot of a video because they haven't actually released this map. So it is quite blurry, unfortunately. Um, Even if I zoom out, it gets less blurry, but then it just gets harder to see because it's small. This was taken from like a phone, but this is essentially their new battleground, their epic battleground, their new PvP stuff that they're putting into the game, which in their speech whenever they were talking about releasing this, they actually equated it to Alteric Valley, which is one of the oldest battlegrounds in the game. But anybody that PvPs will tell you Alteric Valley isn't a PvP battleground. Alteric Valley is first and foremost a raid. It is a raid for PvE where you used to call on bosses and do other things, and you have to kill an end boss, which is Commander or Commoner Battle and Domineer Battle. Apparently, they haven't named them or haven't released the names, but essentially, there's going to be a boss at either end, and you have to go there and kill the other team's boss to win or kill enough players that they run out of reinforcements. So, this is very much the same as Alteric Valley, but the only reason, and anybody who PvPs and has for a long time will tell you this, the only reason anybody wants to do Alteric Valley isn't because it's a great PvP battleground, because it's not. It's more about not fighting the enemy team and killing the enemy boss. The reason people run Alteric Valley is because it's the best for honor. It's an epic battleground where you will get the most honor for doing the battleground, win or loss. It's just min-maxing. It's the easiest way to farm honor to get gear. That's the only reason people were in there. If Aretha Basin gave the same type of honor as Alteric Valley, nobody would ever play Alteric Valley. People do not like the epic battlegrounds for the epic battlegrounds. They like it because it gives you the most honor. That's why people want to play those. Otherwise, PvP players want to play in Aretha Basin like the one we were just in versus real people, because that's when you're fighting pallies. That's when you're fighting other human beings and playing against other players, which is the point of PvP, not downing a raid boss in a PvP battleground. People only did this battleground in Alteric Valley, and they're only going to do this new battleground because of the amount of honor you get. This shows a clear indication of their disconnect from the actual PvP community, and there's no way you can be this disconnected for so long unless it's intentional. This is their declaration again that they just don't care. Uh, you know, Overwatch is dying. All of their main titles are dying, and they just don't care. They would rather have say go play Battlefield 6 because we're not fixing the issues with the game. We're gonna keep making a PvE game, until the day it dies, which is going to be sooner than later. People think that, oh, no, it's not. It's not. I'm sorry to tell you, Bill Gates now owns this game. Through many other things, but and we've seen it in recent history with Concord and other things. These parent companies, this isn't Blizzard owns Blizzard and they're going to stay with it because they love the game. Even if player counts fall, they're still going to stick with it. When player counts fall on this, the parent companies and the investors are going to pull funding, which means no new it's going to go into maintenance mode. No new patches, no new expansions. Once the money is not there, there's no development team behind this. This isn't a lifelong passion of people who wanted to build a game from scratch and make it entertaining like it was in Classic and Burning Crusade. This is a company who bought this game because it makes a lot of money. So now when it doesn't make a lot of money, they're going to sell it to Tencent and it's going to get put into maintenance mode and there's not going to be any further expansions with it. So this new battleground isn't a battleground. It's just a PvE honor grind is all it is. It's another way for PvE players to come into PvP, enjoy what they're doing while they're grinding and getting gear for PvP while not doing anything for PvP. This is the only battleground they've released information on. I've also not seen any information on new arenas coming in or anything like that. New arena maps or anything. So this is it. You get a PVE battleground as your new expansion for Midnight. So I mean that if that's not a clear indicator of what they think of PvP, and like I said, the problem with PvE, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, is once you do a dungeon, once you do a raid, you've done it. Once you get over that hurdle and you struggle and you finally down that boss, that's it. Next week, it's going to be the exact same thing. And the week after that, it's going to be the exact same thing. Whereas if you go into Aretha Basin 5 times in a row, it is literally impossible for you to have the same gameplay experience. The first time you go in, everybody will go to lumber mill. The next time it'll be blacksmith. Then after that, you'll have a bunch of people at gold mine. It will never be the same. Even if you had two groups of 15 people and it's the same, it will never be the same. The pally's going to pop wings at a different time. It's always going to be different. It's always going to be changing. You always have to adapt to what's coming at you. Whereas in a raid, the boss is always going to do the mechanic at 75, 50, and 25. It's always going to be the same mechanic. He's always going to drop the bombs and everybody has to react the same way. It's the same thing and it's repetitive. Even raiders who are going to be honest about the situation will tell you that yes, it is. That's why they have to release new raids on a regular basis to keep it fresh. You don't need to release new if player versus player combat is fun and engaging. You don't need to release new battlegrounds all the time because the combat is what draws people in. But that's the problem I was having is the combat is so broken that nobody wants to play the game. And so now they're going to add a tutorial
Training.
mode versus AI that's going to teach people nothing and reinforce negative habits, and they think that's going to be a fix, and it's not. It's going to make things worse. And when you look at like the racial disparities, uh, are so great that it's literally makes the game to where it's if you want to play the game and you're starting today as a 20-year veteran, as a person who is sitting on a horde orc, somebody who has mained horde basically the entire length of the game and rarely, if ever, played an alliance tune, I am telling you, play alliance. Play alliance because if the game mode is whatever team gets 1,000 gold first wins the game, and one team starts off with 500 gold, and one team starts off with negative 200 gold, which team would you pick? You would choose the one with 500, and that's the way it is for Alliance. Not only are their stats better by and large, race the race, their racial abilities are by and large head and shoulders way better. And they continuously nerf the horde ones. Like this Blood Fury gives me 4,925 attack power. Okay. 4,925 attack power. Let's go see what my attack power is overall here. Why is that not even on here? Like, why do you have to run a mod just to get a basic stat like attack power? Come on, Blizzard. Like, I usually have a mod on that tells me this stuff because literally this is how broken the game is. They don't want you to be able to see these things because then you would easily be able to discern how bad it is. So they hide stats from you so that you can't see how broken it is. Oh my goodness. Alrighty. So my attack power with no I don't even have battle shout up. Just base attack power right now with my gear on is 124,000, we'll say. Okay, if I put battle shout on, it literally it literally went down. Okay, there we go. 130,000 attack power, okay? So this is giving me 5,000 attack power. That's like 3%, 4% of my overall attack power as my racial bonus. And you're like, okay, well, that's not much. To put that in perspective, as a night elf, you get 2% increase to critical strike, haste, and all of your secondary stats. All of these secondary stats, you get a 2% increase to, and they get a 2% increase to movement speed all of the time. They don't have to use an ability to get that stat increase. They naturally have a a 8% increase to all of their stats when 2% increase to haste, 2% to crit, all of that, all of the time. And we're getting a 3% with a 2-minute cooldown that lasts for 15 seconds. So for 15 seconds, we can be slightly less than what a night elf would be. Like, this is the racial disparities we have in this game that are creating such a massive problem. Recently, they nerfed Blood Elf racial, which was used to be an AoE silence. You would cast it, and like Whirlwind, anything within 8 yards would be silenced for like 1.5 seconds. It wasn't a long silence, but the thing that was nice about it was if somebody was casting, you could use it to interrupt their cast, or you could silence them for 1.5 seconds. They've recently changed that so that it is no longer a silence. It removes one beneficial magic effect. Does it remove a Pally's bubble, which makes them immune to damage? No. Does it remove a mage's ice block? No. Does it remove power of word shield that priest put on to stop damage? No. Does it remove ice ward or ice armor or ice barrier, the shield that mages put on? No. It removes non-consequential magic effects, making it a completely and utterly useless ability. It is completely useless. Literally don't have it on your bar. Anything you it's if you use that, it makes you a worse player because anytime you would use that, you're wasting not only the second it would take to cast that, but the global cooldown that now you can't cast a damaging ability. And what did they give us? Why did they do that? What was so overpowered about that ability? Nothing. It's just the Horde had an ability that was halfway decent, so they shit on it. I'm gonna jump over to another tune real quick because we're gonna go in depth with this and we're gonna talk about it and put it in kind of perspective here. Where do we got? Jump in on the druid, and then we'll start wrapping this up because this video is excessively long. This is more of like a live stream type situation. I'm not gonna do much editing for this, so I'm basically gonna post this and
As is.
yeah, and we'll clip different parts and stuff like that, but sorry about the loading times too. This is not on my SSD. This is on a standard hard drive because I'm not clogging up my SSD with junk. So this can get put in the same place that, you know, bad games go. Okay, so I'm now on my druid. He's a shit. That isn't gonna work. I don't even. I was gonna show you what I was looking for here was a Tauren, but Taurens are so bad racially anymore that I got rid of them.
I don't even have one either.
Here's one from. way back in the day. Just I don't care. Just put me in. Put me in, coach, because I want to finish this video up because to be quite honest with you, I want to go play Battlefield 6. All right. So, to put this in perspective, okay? So, one of the racial abilities that Tauren have is called War Stomp. Stuns up to 5 enemies within 8 yards for 2 seconds. Sounds okay. In PvP combat, it's not good. Not at all. Um, you have to cast it, which means you have to stop. It's not something you can channel and move while you're doing. You have to stop to cast it. And anytime you cast it, you can be interrupted. So it takes a 0.5 second cast to stun for 2 seconds. And immediately you would say, okay, that's 2 seconds. That's not great, but you can stun an opponent. 2 seconds means nothing in PvP combat. Not to mention the fact that in stun CCs, don't this 2 seconds is not 2 seconds in PvP combat. If you use this on somebody in PvP combat, it is not going to last 2 seconds. It's going to immediately go into a PvP essentially mode, and it's going to stun them for like 1.5 or 1.6 seconds. And I know we're getting down there where it's like, oh my God, you're talking about tenths of a second. But here's why. Stay with me because the tenths add up. So you start with 1.5 seconds of stun, right? So now you are stunning yourself for half a second to stun the enemy for a second and a half. Now, if you play a class like a warrior or a pally that has Hammer of Justice or Shockwave or Stormbolt, which also stuns them, if you hit them with Shockwave, stun them, and then stun them again, there's a thing called diminishing returns. So that 1.5 second stun now goes down to under a second. So now you're stunning them for as long as you're stunning yourself, because anytime you cast this, it's a stun on yourself because you have to stop. I can't cast any other ability because I want to cast my stun. It's not instant cast. So you're literally stunning yourself for as long as you're going to stun the enemy. What the fuck is the point of that?
And most of the Taurens you see in the world are 'll say 90% druids, which have the best CC in the
Yeah,
game.
and most people don't even play old school Taurens anymore, and I think that's part of it. I think it is a money grab. They have made other racial abilities so terrible that you have to switch, and they want you to pay for the route. They want you to pay for a racial switch, but more so, they want you to change to alliance. I don't like the way they completely shit all over the Horde as a faction. I honestly, if you were new to this game and you started as Horde, you're not going to be playing the game long. It's a very um, bad playing experience. Your racials are terrible. You're always going to be behind the 8 ball when it comes to the alliance. They're always going to have the advantage in every regard when it comes to the game. They're statistically better on paper from the word go as soon as they log in on day one with their character. If you log in on an orc and they log in on a human, statistically they're just better than you are. The only hope you have is if your skill can overcome those numbers. Um, like I said, the racials for the Horde used to overcome those stat differentials, but they have made the Horde's racials so terrible that we now have nothing. Now we have less stats than the Alliance, and our racials are worse than the Alliance. So we have absolutely nothing. But the predominant faction in the Alliance are happy, and that's the truth. That's the point. They're pleasing the majority, and now nobody plays the Horde. They can't get people in, and the people that do play the Horde aren't very good. They're not very talented, and they don't have any experience because they're newer players. The reason they're playing a Horde is because they don't know any better. Players like me are leaving the game because it's just old. After 10 years of every time they do a patch, every time they do something, nerfing Horde abilities, and at the same time buffing Alliance abilities. Recently, they nerfed Horde abilities, and at the same time, they like the cooldown for the Driani ability, which is a heal went from 3 minute cooldown down to two. So they actually buffed a bunch of alliance racials, and in that same exact time frame is whenever they nerfed Pallies, or not Pallies, Blood Elves, and destroyed their racial. So while they're nerfing the Horde, they're buffing the Alliance, and they wonder why nobody plays the Horde anymore. And at this point, they're not going to change that. They're not going to do that because now, if they did it, now they're upsetting the majority of the player base for a small minority, which just isn't good for business and not smart to do in any case. So they're just not going to do it. They're not going to nerf the Alliance, and they're not going to buff the Horde. So you're always going to be behind. You're always going to be at a disadvantage. In some ways, that could be fun to overcome that advantage, but with how unbalanced the game is, you're not going to overcome the that disadvantage very often. So more times than not, you're just going to have an unpleasant gameplay experience and not be as fun. You can be better if I'm on my orc hunter and I'm in a raid with a night elf hunter, which you can do now, and we have the exact same gear on, and I'm better than that player. Still have to overcome the racial stat bonus difference that can make the difference, and it will appear that he's a better player when he's just statistically better. There's nothing I can do about that because anytime he hits, he's going to have more crit. Anytime he runs away from a AoE to stay alive, he's going to have the movement speed. He's going to have the haste. He's going to have all those intangible things that I don't get all the time. And the only thing I can hope for is every 2 minutes I have 15 seconds of being nearly as good stat wise. And the imbalance is there. It's not getting any better. It's not going to get any better, as we've seen with their midnight release. They're not addressing it all. They don't even care, and they're more worried about player housing. So as much as I would like to continue playing WoW, um, this is essentially the reason why I'm willing to spend as much time on this as I have. Is essentially this is it for me. This is the war within. These last couple months is going to be it. The last hurrah. Um, the way they're doing midnight, I just can't justify continuing to spend as much money as they want me to spend on a game that just does not provide a quality gameplay experience anymore. This and look, Orgrimmar is under attack. They're probably raiding Orga. There's probably 20 people on the Horde side in Orgrimmar, and they probably have 60 players just in on the Alliance team. They're probably going to kill the bosses or something. That's not what's going on. I'm being dramatic, but essentially, uh, as much as I wish the game, because there are a lot of things I do like about the game. There are things that are cool, and there are things that I do enjoy. And like I said, I still like playing with people on here and stuff like that. But ultimately, if that's the only reason I'm playing anymore, if the only reason I'm playing is for nostalgia, because I remember going in questing down by Terran Mill, and then somebody kills me on a higher level, so I go get my higher level, and things snowball, and all of a sudden you have a 40-man raid for the Alliance and a 40-man raid for Horde, and we're duking it out right by South Shore and Terran Mill, and we have an epic world PvP event that was unscripted and just happened. That kind of thing doesn't happen anymore, and they're not doing anything to try and help that happen. So I'm playing more for nostalgia at this point than for the actual game. They want people that want to play house. Literally, they want people that want to play house. I'm sure my daughter would love it with her Barbies. Um, but as far as me playing World of Warcraft, I have no desire to play house. None. I'd rather play World of Warcraft, and unfortunately, they don't want to sell World of Warcraft anymore. They want to sell a completely different game experience, and people want to say, "Oh, games have to evolve; they have to change." Grand Theft Auto hasn't changed any, and they're not going to change in Grand Theft Auto 6. And everybody's going to buy that game that bought the previous ones because they're going to make improvements on the game that was previously without changing the core and the identity of the game. Look at any game that's changed its identity. Look at Saints Row. It used to be this over the top exaggeration of doing all kind of crazy stuff, and then they turned it in and they completely changed that where you're no longer a gang member, you're no longer this, and it completely collapsed because they alienated their base players for something, chasing something that didn't even exist, chasing a market that doesn't exist. There's no market out there for people who are going to buy the game to play house in World of Warcraft. That market doesn't exist. So by alienating the players that are here, and people say they're not really, they are. If they spent $10 on building the housing for this game, that was $10 they didn't put into PvP, and PvP is so broken that it needs $10 to try. Every single penny couldn't hurt at this point, but they don't care. So WoW is no longer a PvP game, not because it can't be, not because it wasn't once a good PvP game, but because they have specifically changed it so that it's not. And that's not the same as people not wanting to PvP and the game not being PvP. If I sell two types of pop, if I sell Coca-Cola and I sell orange soda, and they sell nearly equally, we'll say Coca-Cola still has a little bit of an edge, but they're close. And at times they're equal. So and I don't like that. I want people to only drink Coke. So I start selling diet orange pop so people stop buying the orange pop and everybody buys the Coca-Cola. Is that because people don't want orange pop, or is it because the orange pop I'm giving them is complete and utter shit, so nobody drinks it anymore? And that's what's happened with PvP. PvP isn't hasn't fallen off because the market isn't there and the players don't want to do it. It has fallen off because they have intentionally, knowingly destroyed PvP at its fundamental core to ward off people from playing it. They don't want people to play it, so they haven't. And I don't, from a business standpoint, that's amazing. Forsaking millions of customers because you can have both. You can have PvP be fun and effective and balanced and have PvE all at the exact same time. But instead, they've chosen to only have PvE. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong and 20 million people will buy WoW for player housing. But I hope so. I hope for their sake they at least get two new customers for player housing, because they're going to lose two customers because of player housing. Because all of the money they put into that, they didn't put into fixing PvP. They didn't put into fixing the fundamental problems with the gameplay. So they are trading my money and 20 years of me being a customer for hopefully some new player to come along. And we'll see if that, even if they get them, we'll see if that person's willing to get it, dedicate 20 years of their life and money to providing them a job and a way to provide for their families. So, as much as I'd like to keep going, I could bitch. Literally, I've bitched for already a couple hours, and I could continue to bitch about this. I have 20 years of WoW to be able to bitch about.
Osmongold, if you see this and you want to do a
I don't think
duo,
Asmongold's not gonna watch. This is 2 hours. Asmongold's not watching this whole thing.
well, if you hear the end and you want to talk more about this, hit him up and he can go on for hours
Yeah.
with you.
By all means, if people want to talk about this, hit me up in the chat. Definitely. Like, hit me up in the chat down below. Reach out. I'm down to talk about this kind of stuff on any games. Like, I'm willing to do that. So throw stuff down in the chat, and I'm willing to talk about the goods, the bads, the uglies of different games, what I think and stuff like that. Sometimes in videos, because we're trying to create content that's more enjoyable for people. We don't have a chance to like talk like this. Like I said, this video is kind of more of a one-off type thing. So if you've watched it, thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for watching any of our content. Truly, it's kind of awesome. We're super small. We have 30 subscribers, but that's way better than I thought we would be doing. As bad as that sounds, like I thought, like I didn't think anybody would watch, but I'm thankful for the people that do. And definitely let other people know. And if this is something you want to engage with me on, by all means, I love debating. I love talking about different things. So if you want to talk to me, reach out. And uh, it's a pipe dream. But yeah, if fucking Asmongold saw this and wanted to discuss this stuff, I would be more than happy to go over to his channel and just talk about it so that point counterpoint, and we can actually have a discussion about the things that are wrong. And
He can say it from that alliance perspective because
yes,
he's made alliance.
yeah, he's mained Alliance, I've mained Horde, and we can talk about the differences. We can talk about the things that we disagree on, and try and come and see where we disagree and what we can agree on, and kind of go from there. And I would love to do something like that. That would definitely be cool. But for the rest of you, throw it down in the chat. If you have a channel, that's not Asmongold. If you're not Asmongold, but you have a channel and you want to talk about this, by all means, let me know. Throw it down in the comments. Send us a message through the email through our
We have email, message us. You can DM us on Twitter, X, whatever you call it.
Facebook. Yeah, let us know if you want to talk about this kind of thing. I'd be more than happy to come on and talk about this kind of thing. And if you just want to throw it down in the chat, like I said, throw it down below, throw us a comment, and I'll respond to it, and we can have a discussion down there and talk about the different things and what they would need to do to turn this around. I'm not going to get into all that right now. That's a whole nother video for another time. Um, but to be honest, the reason why I'm probably not going to do that video is because that's, you know, spitting into the wind. I don't believe Blizzard would ever do anything to change it. I think they've made the decisions. They did it for a reason. And unfortunately, we all reach a time where we have to move on from certain things, and I think it's just time for me to move on for this game, which is hard because I've played it for a very, very long time. I have a lot of memories, but I'm playing the game for nostalgia. I'm not playing the game because I enjoy the game now. I'm playing it because of what it once was and the memories I used to have. And at that point, unfortunately, as much as it pains me to do so, it's time to move on and find something else. And if you want to check us out, if you want to see the content, Battlefield 6 was just released, and I am mauling people in a tank, boy. I am killing it. So you want to see me run people over and have some fun in a tank? Let me know. We'll throw that on the channel one way or the other. I am out of here, folks, because I am going to go play me some Battlefield 6.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe.